In 1994, a Kurdish shepherd was walking across a barren hilltop in southeastern Turkey when he tripped over a stone. He brushed it aside. Didn't think much of it. That stone was 11,600 years old. And what lay beneath it would destroy everything we thought we knew about the birth of human civilization. Not a settlement, not a tomb, not even a primitive shelter. What lay beneath that hill was a fully constructed temple complex, with massive carved pillars, artistic reliefs, and precise architectural geometry, built by people who, according to every history book ever written, shouldn't have been capable of doing it. People who didn't have metal tools, didn't have the wheel, didn't have writing, didn't even have agriculture yet. This is Göbekli Tepe. And this is the discovery that broke history. Section 2. What we found. Before we go deeper, let me make sure you understand exactly what we're talking about, because most people who have heard the name still don't grasp the true scale of what's down there. Göbekli Tepe sits on a ridge in the Taurus Mountains, near the city of Şanlıurfa in modern Turkey. The name translates simply to Potbelly Hill. From a distance it looks like nothing, a curved bump on the horizon, unremarkable. But when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt arrived in 1994, armed with magnetometer surveys and a gut feeling that the earlier 1960s survey had missed something, he started digging. And he didn't stop for the next 2 decades, until he died at that site in 2014. What Schmidt found was not one temple. Not 2. It was a series of at least 20 enclosures, circular and oval rings of T-shaped limestone pillars, each one standing between 3 and 6 meters tall, weighing between 10 and 20 tons. Some estimates go higher. The largest pillars discovered so far weigh over 45 tons. Each one was quarried from a limestone plateau about a quarter-mile away, and carved intricately, deliberately, artistically, without metal tools. Now here's what the textbooks never prepared us for. The oldest layers of Göbekli Tepe, the deepest, the most ancient, are also the most sophisticated. The largest pillars, the most complex enclosures, the most detailed carvings. Civilizations are supposed to get more complex over time. Here it went the other direction. The oldest work is the best work. As if whoever built this was in decline, not in ascent. Archaeologists call this the problem of devolution. And it doesn't have an accepted explanation. Not yet. Section 3. The impossible numbers. Let me give you the numbers, because the numbers are where this story starts to feel genuinely, deeply strange. Göbekli Tepe dates to approximately 9600 BC. That is 11,600 years ago. Stonehenge, 6,000 years old. The Great Pyramid of Giza, 4,500 years old. The earliest Mesopotamian cities, Uruk, Eridu, the cradle of so-called civilization, 5,500 years old at best. Göbekli Tepe predates all of them by thousands of years. It was ancient history, when the Egyptians were just getting started. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The people who built it, as far as we know, were hunter-gatherers. No farms, no permanent settlements, no surplus food, no specialized labor class, no state, no hierarchy, no writing, no logistics chain. Moving a 45-ton limestone block, even a quarter of a mile, requires hundreds of coordinated workers. It requires ropes and sledges and knowledge. It requires someone keeping a plan in their head, except there was no paper. It requires people to show up, day after day, and do hard physical work for a purpose that isn't food, isn't shelter, isn't survival. The standard archaeological model says this level of organized, large-scale construction was only possible after agriculture, after surplus, after the conditions existed for some people to do something other than hunt and gather. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just predate that model. It obliterates it. Some researchers now suggest the opposite, that Göbekli Tepe is the reason agriculture happened, not the other way around. That to feed the workers building this temple, the surrounding communities were forced to begin deliberately cultivating grains. That the temple came first. That religion, or whatever this was, created civilization. It's not the other way around. That idea alone rewrites the entire story of what we are and where we came from. But that's not even the most unsettling part. Section 4, the carvings. Let's talk about what's on those pillars. Because this is where Göbekli Tepe stops being an archaeological puzzle and starts feeling like a message. The T-shaped pillars, and remember, these things are 2 to 6 meters tall, weighing upward of 10 tons each, are carved with extraordinary skill. Low relief and high relief sculptures, 3-dimensional figures emerging from stone. Animals rendered with such anatomical precision that experts can identify the species without ambiguity. You see foxes, snakes, boars, aurochs, wild cattle, cranes, ducks, spiders. And scorpions. Lots of scorpions. Now, some of these animals make sense for the region, but the density, the specific selection, and the arrangement on the pillars follows patterns that don't look random. Researchers have noted that certain animal groupings repeat across multiple enclosures, almost like a vocabulary. Like these images aren't just decoration, but syntax. And then there are the abstract symbols, H-shapes, crescents, circles, repeated geometric forms that appear across different pillars and different enclosures. No one has decoded them. We don't know if they're a proto-writing system, a calendrical notation, or something else entirely. But here's what a team of researchers from the University of Edinburgh published in 2017 that made the mainstream academic world deeply uncomfortable. They proposed that the carvings on one particular pillar, Pillar 43, what they call the Vulture Stone, were not decorative art. They were an astronomical record, a star map, and what it was recording was a comet impact. Specifically, the researchers matched the arrangement of animals and symbols on the Vulture Stone to the star constellations as they would have appeared around 10,950 BC, right at the beginning of a period called the Younger Dryas. And what happened at the start of the Younger Dryas? The Earth was hit by fragments of a disintegrating comet. The planet was plunged back into near-glacial conditions for over 1,000 years. Temperatures dropped, megafauna went extinct, and human populations across the northern hemisphere were devastated. We're not talking about a theory with no evidence. We're talking about a published, peer-reviewed paper in the journal Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry with specific testable star position claims that held up to scrutiny. The builders of Göbekli Tepe may have been commemorating the worst catastrophe in human memory, carving it into stone so that no one who came after would ever forget what fell from the sky. Section 5, the cosmic event theory. To understand why this matters so much, I need to take you back, way back, to a moment roughly 12,900 years ago. The Earth is warming, the last ice age is ending, glaciers are retreating. Humans, modern Homo sapiens, like you and me, have been on this planet for at least 200,000 years. We're smart, we're adaptable, we've survived everything nature threw at us. And then something comes from above. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, first formally proposed in 2007 and continuously refined since, argues that a cluster of comet fragments struck the Earth simultaneously across multiple continents around 12,900 years ago. The impact or impacts triggered massive wildfires, a global soot and debris cloud that blocked sunlight, instant flooding from melted ice sheets, and a sudden, catastrophic temperature plunge of up to 15 degrees Celsius in just a few years. In North America, the evidence is stark. Layers of nanodiamonds, shocked quartz, platinum and iridium anomalies, elements that come from space, embedded in sediment strata exactly at the Younger Dryas boundary. The charcoal record shows catastrophic wildfire across tens of millions of acres. Simultaneously, almost every species of large mammal in North America, mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, horses, camels, disappears. Not slowly over centuries. Abruptly, and the human populations in the affected zones. They collapse. Archaeological sites simply stop. The Clovis culture of North America, the earliest identified human culture on that continent, vanishes from the record without warning and without a conventional explanation. This event is now considered one of the most violent environmental episodes in the last 100,000 years of Earth history. And the people at Göbekli Tepe in southern Turkey, right on the edge of the impact zone, appear to have survived it. Now go back to Pillar 43. The Vulture Stone. Look at it again with this context. The scorpion, positioned at the bottom of the pillar, near what researchers believe represents the horizon, corresponds in the Edinburgh study to the constellation Scorpius. The bag-like symbol carried by the central vulture figure, some researchers believe it depicts a sphere, a comet, or the soul of the dead, or both. A headless human figure on the stone may represent mass casualties. The vultures themselves, birds that appear across the site, are known cross-culturally as carriers of souls, symbols of death, symbols of transition. If this reading is correct, and I want to be honest with you, it is a hypothesis, not a consensus, then Göbekli Tepe isn't just a temple. It's a monument to cosmic catastrophe. It's a people building the biggest thing they had ever built, as a way of saying, "This happened. We were here. We saw the sky fall. Do not forget." And there are other details that deepen the unease. Göbekli Tepe is not oriented randomly. The enclosures are laid out with clear astronomical alignment. Certain pillars track the rising and setting of specific stars and constellations as they appeared in the sky 11,000 years ago. The site encodes a snapshot of the ancient sky. A frozen moment. A date. Why would hunter-gatherers, people who had no written language, no settled cities, no formal institutions, invest this much effort into recording the sky? Unless the sky had done something that could never be allowed to be forgotten. Section 6. Why they buried it. Now we come to the question that haunts every researcher who has ever stood on that hill in Turkey and stared down at those stones. Why did they bury it? Around 8000 BC, after being used for somewhere between 1 and 2000 years, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately, systematically, and carefully filled in. Not abandoned. Not destroyed. Not left to be buried by time and erosion. Buried, on purpose, by human hands. Thousands of tons of soil and rubble, carried to the site and packed between and around the enclosures, until the entire complex was sealed beneath the earth. This is one of the most debated questions in all of modern archaeology. And there is no settled answer. But there are theories, and some of them will stay with you. Theory 1. Ritual closure. Some archaeologists believe the burial was an intentional act of ritual closing, the same way certain cultures seal off sacred spaces when their function has been fulfilled. Not death, but completion. The site had served its purpose. The story it encoded had been told enough times, passed down enough generations, that the physical monument was no longer needed. The memory was safe. So they sealed it like closing a book. Theory 2. Protection. Here's a darker reading. What if they buried it to protect it? Not from time, but from other people. From raiders, from rival groups, from those who might not understand what the site meant. There is evidence of deliberate, almost tender placement of objects within the fill, as if things were being hidden, not discarded. As if the burial was an act of love, rather than erasure. Theory 3. The sky changed. This is the theory that keeps me awake at night. Because of the astronomical alignments encoded in Göbekli Tepe, those precise orientations towards specific star positions, some researchers believe the site was a living astronomical instrument. It tracked the sky in real time. Priests or astronomers, whatever you want to call them, would have watched specific stars rise and set through the gaps between the pillars, year after year, generation after generation. And what happens to astronomical alignments over centuries? The sky drifts. Earth's axial precession, the slow wobble of our planet over a 26.0-year cycle, gradually shifts where stars appear in the sky. The star that rises due east today will rise slightly differently in 500 years. After 1,000 years, the alignments built into Göbekli Tepe would no longer work. The windows carved to catch specific stars would miss them entirely. If the site was built to watch for something, if it was a warning system, a vigil, a way of tracking whether the sky was safe, then the day those alignments stopped working was the day the site lost its power. And perhaps the day they buried it. They may have buried Göbekli Tepe because the stars it was watching had moved on. Because the cosmic vigil was over. Because either the danger had passed or they had decided it had. There is a fourth theory, one that even mainstream archaeologists are increasingly reluctant to dismiss outright. What if Göbekli Tepe was not the only site? What if it was part of a network, a civilization or a proto-civilization that spanned a much wider area than we've been willing to accept? Other sites in the region are being excavated right now. Karahan Tepe, Taş Tepeler. Each one showing similar T-shaped pillars, similar animal carvings, similar astronomical orientations. All clustered in a tight geographic zone. All from roughly the same era. The culture that built these things didn't spring from nowhere. It had antecedents, it had accumulated knowledge. It had somewhere in its past, a period of learning and refinement that produced the astonishing technical skill on display at Göbekli Tepe's oldest, deepest, most complex levels. We haven't found that earlier phase yet. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Especially when most of what we think we know about early human history is based on a tiny fraction of what's actually in the ground. Klaus Schmidt himself said before he died that he believed there are hundreds of similar sites still buried across the region. Sites we haven't found. Sites that could rewrite the timeline all over again. So when they buried Göbekli Tepe, when they packed the earth around those silent stone giants and walked away, maybe they weren't ending something. Maybe they were preserving it. Hiding it from an age they knew was coming. An age that wouldn't understand. An age that would be starting over. An age like ours. Let me leave you with this. We think of civilization as a line. Stone tools, agriculture, cities, writing, bronze, iron, steam, silicon. We move in one direction, we improve, we accumulate, we progress. Göbekli Tepe suggests something else. It suggests that somewhere in the human past, before the period we call prehistory, before the period we have records for, there were people who looked at the sky with genuine sophistication. Who understood celestial mechanics well enough to encode it in stone. Who organized thousands of people around a shared spiritual or intellectual mission, without the infrastructure we've always assumed was required. Who built things that we, with all our technology and knowledge, are only just beginning to decode. And then something happened. And they started over. And the knowledge they had accumulated, the sky maps, the symbols, the architectural precision, had to be rebuilt from scratch. Imperfectly. Slowly. Over thousands of years. What were they watching for up on that hill? What did those carvings mean to the hands that made them? Why did they bury something they must have spent generations building? We don't know. And the honest answer is, we may never know. The silence of Göbekli Tepe is not the silence of emptiness. It's the silence of something waiting to be understood. The shepherd who tripped over that stone in 1994 stumbled onto the edge of a mystery that goes all the way to the bottom of human history. And the deeper we dig, literally and figuratively, the more we realize that the story we've been telling ourselves about who we are and where we came from is not the whole story. Maybe not even close. Göbekli Tepe doesn't answer our questions about the past. It turns out we were asking the wrong questions entirely. If this made your brain itch, if you're sitting there thinking, wait, how have I never heard about this, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe, and next week we're going down another rabbit hole you will not see coming. Drop your theory about Göbekli Tepe in the comments. The best ones genuinely surprise me. I'll see you in the next one.